You ever heard of Coulter Wall? Ever heard of John Wall, the block man?
John Wall, the block man.
That was his thing, right?
John Wall.
John the brick wall.
John Wall, the block man. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Average Joe Football Show. I'm your host, Joe Fair. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Bo Burnham's favorite football podcast. That's right. I'm joined once again, obviously, by my illustrious producer, Joe Teason. How's it going, Joe?
It's going swell. Absolutely swell.
Very good.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Bo Burnham, actually.
Really?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
No, Bo Burnham released a Netflix special.
Incredible.
And I've watched it twice. Listened to the album
Countless
over
times.
and over.
Yeah.
And
real good.
real sad.
Real sad.
Real good.
It's just, if you want to have a laugh and also maybe have a cry, Bo Burnham's Inside is great. Make Happy, the one before that, also the same thing. You'll laugh, you'll cry.
Yep.
Incredible music. Just so good. But yeah, we're back. We're releasing an episode a little later than usual.
Did you even post to say we're
Yeah, I know late? I did on Instagram.
Oh, okay.
Didn't post. Yeah, I posted on Instagram. Said no episode because of scheduling errors.
Basically,
we're busy all the time now.
Yeah.
No, Joe, you had your bachelor party this weekend.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, over a year.
Over a year late. Yep, I got married in May of last year, and I just had my bachelor party this week.
Yeah, and it's I was the one planning it, so
that says everything you need to know about Joe.
The fact that we can't even get this podcast up in time kind of shows.
Yeah,
it makes sense if you would, say, okay, yeah, it makes sense that this guy would not be able to plan a bachelor party in a year. So we're gonna blame COVID for this episode not being released as well.
Absolutely.
It just got lost in the mail, lost in the shuffle. Things are really busy right now with COVID. We're so swamped.
Actually, things just opened up, so we're not anymore.
Okay, yeah. You didn't have to say that. Okay. I think that people will just assume that Canada will be on lockdown forever. So that's going to happen. But no, yeah, we had your bachelor party this weekend. It was a good time.
It was really good. Went golfing. I won. I beat everybody.
That's not true.
The night. Actually, one thing I do want to talk about is the night before that, I and a couple of friends, we played poker. We played poker together. We poked together. I won. I won it all. Right. The whole pot. Every pot, actually. I never lost a pot.
Well, that's not true.
And I ended up winning all the chips in the end, which is all the money.
Well, yes. We okay. We let we let you get a win. Your bachelor party was this weekend, so we had to kind of be nice. And, you were the youngest one there. We felt kind of bad for you. We just recently let you hang out with us, so it was
okay.
We were like, why don't we just make him feel like he's wanted here? And then you were kind of a jerk about winning.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Did I deserve it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sure. Yeah, I guess. It's just every time we play, and I consider you probably my best friend other than my wife. But every time we play a game and there's multiple people involved, the only person that I want to lose is you. So I don't know what you can take from that.
Well,
yeah, it's just
funny because the next day,
yeah,
you and I at my bachelor party, you and I played like 5 games of Spikeball on the same team, and we never lost.
Could not be stopped.
We could not be stopped.
So we were on the same team then. Then I was okay with it.
Okay.
I like you. I still like you as a friend.
Yeah.
It's just I want to beat you.
I know that.
So then when we're on the same team, yeah, we could. It was just we dominated.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
And actually, I challenge anybody to Spikeball.
Yeah. Anybody listening to this podcast
or pickleball,
Spikeball, basketball, soccer ball, any ball. We will school mostly Spikeball. Let's stick to maybe Spikeball.
That's the big one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So we'll be just chilling in Crystal Park in Elmer, Ontario, Canada. Where we'll be there every evening. Just come on by
from 7 to 9.
7 to 9. And we'll play in a little bit of Spikeball.
And we'll be warming up, so don't think like we're just there.
You better come warm because we'll be warmed up. We're not gonna give you a chance to warm up.
No.
There's gonna be a rally for serve. We're gonna get right into it. All right.
Mercy serves.
Courtesy serves. We don't want any of that garbage. If you have to serve it hard, what are you trying to prove?
Yeah.
You're not that good at Spikeball.
Yeah, you're just good at serving. You're not good at Spikeball.
You're scared for what we might do if you want to serve it hard at us.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about football at some point on this podcast. We actually got a jam-packed show for you guys today.
Oh, so it's going to be a long one.
It's going to be a long one, like all of them.
Of course.
We're going to hit the news, a lot of minicamp holdouts and stuff, contract negotiations, new contracts being signed, rumors here and there. Going to get into talking. Thanks for acknowledging my voice crack with that face, okay. Joe. Also, we're going to get into a segment where I did it last year. It was players that are ready to be superstars. So players that will join the superstar club. There's in the NFL, there's stars, there's really good players, and then there's superstars. There's the guys that even this fool knows. Even this guy who's choking on his orange juice as we speak.
Almost.
Yeah. Name NFL players that you know.
Pat Mahoney. I think that. What's his name?
That's it, eh? You just Pat Mahomes and you just made a joke about it and you can't name any more.
No,
this is episode what? 57?
Yeah.
And you have one.
Jerry Rice.
That's insane that you'd even know that one. He hasn't played for 20
Devin Booker.
Devin Booker's a basketball player.
Curtis Mayfield,
not a player. That's okay.
Okay, name you have to narrow it down. You got to do positions. You can't just
who's the quarterback for your team that's supposed to be your favorite team?
Lamar Jackson.
There you go, Lamar Jackson. So he would definitely be a superstar because
but he pooped his pants last year. How can he be my favorite player if he pooped his pants on live television?
Yeah, that's embarrassing, man. You got to maybe reassess. Maybe we should. Every year you should have a new favorite team. And
I know this year I think it's going to be like the Suns.
Okay, whoa. Sorry, I just peeked.
Don't scream. I got to tell you this. If you're going to scream, don't do it directly into your mic. You got to go, whoa.
I'm sorry. I'm not as experienced as you. You obviously haven't hosted as many podcasts as you.
Even like that.
Okay, all right. I just don't want you to spoil what your favorite team was. We could milk this.
I was going to say the Suns.
Okay, the Phoenix Suns?
Yes.
Basketball team. That's actually funny that you bring up basketball.
Oh.
Because we have a new edition of What Does Joe Know? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with everybody's favorite
ever. I even forgot about this segment,
I honestly did too.
You've got to be kidding me.
Everybody's favorite podcast segment where we test Joe's knowledge. It's usually on football, but we're switching it up right now because I said so.
I think I know basketball better than football.
I think
TBH.
Listen, this is an easy one, and honestly, I think you should be able to get it. So, you feel like you know basketball pretty well.
What's my prize?
Name some basketball players real quick.
Oh my goodness! Don't even get me started. Steph Curry, LeBron James. What's that really ugly looking feller?
Anthony Davis?
No, Trae Young.
Yeah. All right. Ugh.
Anthony Davis is not that ugly. He's underrated.
He's actually it's just the unibrow.
Yeah, and then we got my all-time favorite.
The one you just said?
That
what
one guy, the one dude. What's his name?
Well, I don't know.
He played for the Nets for a while.
James Harden? Oh, no. D'Angelo Russell.
That's my man.
Do you know what team he plays on right now?
Last I checked, he was playing for the Grizzlies.
No, close. No. It's an animal kind of like a grizzly.
Oh, the Bears?
No.
Chicago or otherwise?
Chicago or otherwise. No, he plays for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yes, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. You like D'Angelo Russell.
I love him.
He's been your favorite player. You said Devin Booker. You never even mentioned him this time.
Oh yeah, Devin Booker.
He plays for the Phoenix.
Michael Jordan.
Okay. No. Okay. Well, I think you've proved your point.
Yeah. James Harden.
I gave you that one, so that one's not really. He doesn't really count.
That long guy. Draymond Green. He's not the guy I was thinking of. But a
Long
different guy. Who's the ghoul? What's his name? The Grim Reaper?
The Slim Reaper, yeah.
Slim Reaper?
KD.
Kevin Durst?
Yeah, Kevin Durst. You know, what's his name?
Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant. Wow, you know basketball pretty well.
I do.
I think you'll kill it. Honestly, I think you'll get this one pretty easily.
will.
I wanted to make an easy one because we haven't done this segment for a while. I might bring it back a few times.
I love it.
I feel like it's good off-season talk.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not doing football this time. This is the first time that it's not. It's basketball.
It can be literally anything.
Anything. But it's
pop culture.
But the rules, I forgot. The rules of this are, it has to be a question that I would very easily know the answer to.
Okay.
So that's how we kind of narrow it down to football.
So what you're saying is you know more about basketball and football.
Well, I think most things I know more about most things than you.
Just say the question.
So the question is: there are 7 teams remaining in the NBA playoffs as we squeak. The Denver Nuggets were eliminated last night, so there's no longer 8 teams. There's 7 teams currently. The Suns have moved on. I just gave you a team right there off the bat. Moved on to the next round. So there's 7 teams. I have 8 teams written down. Which one of these teams is... No, listen up. It's not as hard as you think. I'm going to make it a lot easier than you think. I'm not going to ask you which teams are remaining. Which team on this list is not only not in the NBA playoffs, but not in the NBA at all. They're not even an NBA team.
I'm going to ace
I think you should, honestly.
Shan't I?
Don't answer too quickly because you've gotten in trouble doing that. So make sure you think about it, okay? So, you ready for the 8 teams?
I am.
You want to write it down?
Nope.
Or, no? Okay. All right. So, team number 1 is the Atlanta Hawks. Team number 2 is the Philadelphia 76ers. Team number 3 is the Brooklyn Nets. Team number 4, the Milwaukee Bucks. Team number 5, the Utah Jazz. 6, the Seattle Mariners. 7, the LA Clippers. And 8, the Phoenix Suns. So with that first read through, how are you feeling?
I think good.
You think good? You think you got it?
Yeah.
You don't want me to read them over another time?
You do.
Full.
I have two. Can I make a phone call?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you or what you're gonna do.
Can I look one thing up?
Well, no. Okay, bless you.
I held up my finger to say pause.
Okay.
Anyway,
what do you want to look up?
Just to see if one of them that I'm thinking is a football team or not.
No, you can't do that.
Is one of them a football team?
You can't do any. You can't Google things. How the heck is that gonna work? No. Okay. Listen, I'm gonna go through it one more time.
Quicker this time.
Yeah, I'm gonna go quicker. So I'm not gonna do the numbers. Atlanta Hawks, Philadelphia 76ers, Brooklyn Nets, Milwaukee Bucks, Utah Jazz, Seattle Mariners, LA Clippers, Phoenix Suns. What is your answer? Maybe just, go process elimination. Which ones do you know for sure are basketball teams?
Obviously, the Suns, the Jazz, the Bucks.
I thought the Jazz might trip you up. That's good that you got
Really?
that right off the bat.
Oh, yeah. So the Jazz, Suns, the Bucks.
I feel like I know which teams you're probably struggling with. You still have 2, you think?
Yeah.
Which teams are those?
The 2 that it's the Hawks and the Mariners.
Hawks and the Mariners. Atlanta Hawks.
I thought the Hawks were a football team.
Seattle Mariners.
Oh, I'm thinking about the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, and then Seattle Mariners. So it's getting real confusing for you here.
Seattle. Where is Seattle again?
Seattle's in Washington.
And Washington.
You were really hoping it wasn't Atlanta, weren't you?
Final answer. Seattle Mariners.
Seattle Mariners is your final answer. And that answer is 100% correct, Joe.
I knew
That's
it.
That's right. Not only is that team not an NBA team, they've never been an NBA team because they are a baseball team.
I knew it. I knew it.
You didn't know.
I could have.
You didn't, though.
I could have known.
You didn't know.
Okay.
You thought they were a football team. Oh,
Well.
And by the way, the Atlanta Hawks, I think the reason you thought they were a football team is because there's a football team called the Atlanta Falcons.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're both birds.
Yeah, very similar birds,
man.
very similar colors.
Yeah.
Same city.
Yeah.
Trae Young plays for the Atlanta Hawks.
Okay.
Yeah, that was
Yep.
really good, Joe. Congratulations.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
You win today's episode.
What did I win?
Well, you just win the episode.
Okay.
So you get to talk about the news today. And,
All right.
So
First up in the news, OJ is going back to prison. They found out he actually did it. So
turns out
he really did do
it
it.
was him
Yeah.
all along. Turns out the glove, it didn't have to fit.
Didn't have to fit.
He could still have killed him.
Sometimes the glove doesn't have to fit.
Yeah, the glove turns out doesn't have to fit to murder somebody in cold blood.
Yeah.
So, no, good job, Joe. Congratulations.
Have you ever looked up the murder pictures from?
Okay, let's not maybe get into that. Okay. Why don't we just jump into the news? As we get into the slower period of the NFL offseason, a lot of the news that we have is going to be contract related, some of it trade related, some of it contract holdout related. We have Julio Jones recently being traded. We talked about that on last week's episode. If you guys have not listened to that, make sure you guys check that out. But speaking of trade rumors, Deshaun Watson has not been in the news in a while. It's gone quite quiet since he has been going through this legal battle. For those of you that don't know, maybe you've been living under a rock, or maybe you just haven't been paying attention to football in a few months. Deshaun Watson was disgruntled in Houston. He was the Houston Texans quarterback. One of the best quarterbacks, he was definitely a top 5 quarterback last year, led the league in passing yards on a terrible Houston Texans team. Made it abundantly clear he did not want to be in Houston anymore. This offseason, he demanded a trade, did not like the direction that the organization was going. And right as that happened, around 22 sexual assault allegations from masseuses came out against him, that he allegedly sexually harassed them, sexually assaulted them. And since then, the trade rumors obviously died down. Nobody wants to trade for somebody when they're going through that much legal trouble. And we haven't talked about that much on the podcast. And Joe, I would like to get your opinion just a little bit. This is not what I was really going to talk about, but just the fact that this guy has 22 sexual assault allegations from 22 different masseuses. Masseuses.
Yeah.
That's insane. I'm at 22. Imagine getting massage from 22 different people.
Yeah. How do you even have that many massages?
Yeah, that would be so hard to get that many. Like that would. I feel like you'd have to really go out of your way.
Jeffrey Epstein did a lot of that too.
Masseuse stuff.
Well, I mean, he got other girls to masseuse him.
And listen, we're not comparing Jeffrey Epstein to
No.
Deshaun Watson. All these are still alleged allegations. Nothing's been proven. But I just find it completely absurd. And like most NFL players are like that too. It's like I had a masseuse. Like this NFL player is talking, like former NFL players saying, like I had a masseuse in my playing career, but like one, like 22 is insane.
Mm-hmm.
That's like almost one for every day of the month.
Yeah, man.
That's so many masseuses.
How often does he get massaged?
You'd have to be a lot,
right?
I understand he's a professional athlete, but like
at some point,
that's a lot. I mean, wow.
Or do you think that he has so many because each one kind of said, "I don't want to work with you anymore"? Because
that could be it as well. But like you think like, and again, these are all alleged allegations. Nothing have been proven. Nothing is innocent until proven guilty. But like, you think that he would eventually be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this because like I have to get a new masseuse almost every week.
Yeah, and
it's like it's gonna get out eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But I just thought that was crazy. 22, or maybe it's more or less. I'm not sure. It's around 20 something masseuses, which is crazy. But anyways, Deshaun Watson, it's been kind of quiet. A lot of people think that he's gonna eventually, sometime shortly, he's gonna settle these cases. So he's gonna pay off the women, and it's just gonna be over. What was that?
No, I had something unrelated. I just remembered something that has to do with me and you. I was going to talk about before we talked about football.
Okay. Do you still want to talk about it?
We don't have to right now.
We can talk about it at the end.
Sure.
Okay. So stay tuned to the end of the podcast for riveting conversation.
That's called baiting, right?
Yeah, it's
or is that something?
It's called a tease.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to live radio. But Deshaun Watson has gone quiet. The news around him has gone cold because of that. A lot of people think that he's going to settle in the upcoming weeks. The NFL has not really done anything besides conduct an investigation. There's been no findings, no suspensions, nothing. He hasn't been put on the commissioner exempts list, nothing like that. But there's been constant rumors that there would still potentially be teams that want to trade for Deshaun Watson, even with these allegations. I mean, if you trade for him, you would get him at an all-time low price. I mean, we're talking before all of this, he probably would have gone for three or more first-round picks. At this point, who knows? It would be he's a depleted asset at this point. But there's, with him potentially settling in the next few weeks, I think that the Deshaun Watson trade rumors will heat up. I don't think that he will play another down for the Houston Texans, but who knows? Anything's on the table at this point. But in the news, what we were going to talk about is Kareem Jackson, a former teammate of Deshaun Watson on the Houston Texans. He now plays for the Denver Broncos. Went on Aqib Talib, another former Denver Broncos podcast, and said that Deshaun Watson wants to be in Denver. He wants to play for the Denver Broncos. And the Denver Broncos have been one of the teams that was rumored to get Deshaun Watson, also rumored to get potentially Aaron Rodgers. They still only have Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater there in Denver. And I just thought that it was interesting that he would say that. Kareem Jackson is a friend of Deshaun Watson. There's been a lot of other speculation, people saying that Denver is not one of his top teams. There's still teams apparently interested in trading for Deshaun Watson, and if all this clears up, I would expect teams like Denver, teams like Miami, probably, depending on how they feel with Tua. Teams like that. That I think the Eagles, I think they would be very interested as well. I think there would still be tremendous. I don't think this story is over. I think the way that I see it going, no criminal charges have been filed against Deshaun Watson. They've all been done in civil court. So even if he gets a suspension, say it's an 8-game suspension, I would feel like it's something along the lines of an 8-game suspension. I think at some point this offseason, the Deshaun Watson rumors are going to heat back up. And I would not be surprised if at some point this offseason he does end up being traded, even if he has to serve that 8-game suspension. And then moving on to the next little bit of news. And we have a bunch of contract talk. First up, the Dolphins re-signed Jerome Baker, linebacker, the 24-year-old linebacker, to a 3-year, $39 million contract worth about $13 million per year. He gets a big deal. A lot of speculation that he might not even be back on the Dolphins next year. PFF does not like Jerome Baker. PFF is one of the lowest graded linebackers by PFF in the NFL. The Dolphins really seem to like him. Brian Flores spoke about this contract in interviews, just saying how much they love Jerome Baker. They love his attitude. They love, his drive, what he brings to the table. And I think he fits the Dolphins scheme really well, just as a blitzing linebacker. The Dolphins used blitz more than almost any team in the NFL last year. And that's what Jerome Baker is so good at. He's a smaller, speedier linebacker. He had 7 sacks last year, and he's had back-to-back years of 100 tackles. So he is a good player to have on that defense. I don't think he's necessarily a great player, but at 24 years old, back-to-back 100 tackle seasons, he had 7 sacks at the linebacker position last year. He fits what Brian Flores is trying to do on defense. I think this is a signing that makes sense. The Dolphins have a ton of other contract issues that they're going to need to shore up this season. Mike Gesicki, the tight end there, is also a free agent after this year. Xavier Howard, who we're going to talk about next, had some issues with his contract. Emmanuel Ogbah is looking to get a contract extension. But like I said, Jerome Baker gets that new contract. Maybe a little overpaid, but I think it's a high upside player. I think he's a good, not great player right now, but he's young. He fits the scheme. They just love him there in Miami. So a good signing, in my opinion, for my Miami Dolphins. And sticking with the Dolphins, Xavier Howard, the all-pro cornerback for the Miami Dolphins, holding out of minicamp. You're going to hear a lot of this stuff as teams get into minicamp here in the offseason. He wants a new contract. He's just in his second year of a 5-year contract extension that he signed just a few years ago. He's one of the highest paid cornerbacks in the NFL, but no longer the highest paid cornerback on his team is Byron Jones, who was signed before last season, is the highest paid corner on the Miami Dolphins. And I think that's where the frustration comes from Xavier Howard. This was expected. A lot of writers within the Miami Dolphins organization, beat writers, just fans expected Xavier Howard to hold out. He wants more money. He had 10 interceptions last year, led the league in interceptions. He tied a team record for interceptions. He was a runner-up for the Defensive Player of the Year. I still think he should have won the Defensive Player of the Year, but that's just me. And to me, a lot of contract disputes, I try not to talk too much about contracts because, a lot of them I just don't care about. I don't really care what people get paid. People always want to talk about overpaid, underpaid. I don't pay much attention to contracts. You're worth whatever somebody will pay you. That's what I think. If you're getting paid something, you're not overpaid. Somebody thought you were worth that, so you're getting paid exactly what you're worth to that person. But with contracts, this Xavier Howard thing makes me wonder why contracts are even signed. I mean, he is not even 2 years into his 5-year deal that he just signed, and now he's holding out for a new contract. So what is even the point of signing contracts? If you can just sign a 5-year deal and then just not like it and say, nope, I don't want to do that. I want to have a new one. And it's like, so what is the point of signing for 5 years? Why not play year to year? It's like, why sign a 5-year deal? It makes no sense. And anytime you want to question players and holding out, it's become a cool thing in the NFL world, in the NFL, as far as writers, fans, everybody, to defend the players at all times. And for the most part, I kind of do align with that. I root for the players. But, it's just become this cool thing to do. It's what you have to do to defend the players. But there's also this narrative that if you disagree with a player holding out, or you think it's silly that a player's holding out, you're rooting for the billionaire owners. It's like, why would you root for the billionaire owners? Why would you not root for the millionaire NFL players? And it's and I'm not rooting for the billionaire owners. I could care less how much Stephen Ross makes. I don't care, the owner of the Dolphins. I could care less. I'm rooting for my team that I root for to have the cap space to make other signings. I'm rooting for my team to have players on good value contracts, to not overpay for every single player. I'm rooting for a guy who signs a 5-year contract and not even 2 years into his contract says, nope, it's not good enough. I mean, he's making a substantial amount of money. It's not like he's getting paid peanuts. To me, it's just ridiculous to barely even have started your 5-year deal and to already be wanting a new deal. I don't know how this will play out. The Dolphins have made it very clear they like Xavier Howard. I don't think he's going to be traded by any means. They very much value the cornerback position. That's what they value the most, really, since Brian Flores has showed up. I don't think he'll be traded. I think he's a big part of this team. He's the best player on the team. So maybe they let him get a new deal. They give him a little incentive. They give him a little extra money here, a signing bonus or something. Maybe that happens. I don't think he'll be traded. The way Brian Flores is talking, he's basically saying, I don't know. To me, it sounds like they don't want to give him a new contract. They would like to not give him a new contract, and it makes sense to me. He just signed a 5-year deal. And it's not like he signed this deal 5 years ago, and now the quarterback market is outrageous. Like, he signed this not even 2 years ago. So an interesting situation there with Xavier Howard. And speaking of defensive backs holding out from minicamp and in the AFC, sticking in the AFC, Stephon Gilmore, the former All-Pro defensive back, former Defensive Player of the Year for the New England Patriots, Stephon Gilmore is also holding out of New England Patriots mandatory minicamp. Anybody who holds out of the mandatory minicamps can be fined up to $94,000 for holding out of these mandatory minicamps. Stephon Gilmore currently is the 24th highest paid defensive back in the NFL. Which, I mean, if you know Stephon Gilmore, he's probably a top 5, top 7 defensive back in the NFL. Even with the injuries and the struggling last year, He's definitely better than the 24th best paid corner in the NFL. He's due to make $7.9 million this year. They gave him a little extra money last year on his contract. They moved some money around, and that's why his contract number is so low. And now it seems like he wants a new contract. And this is an interesting situation because I last year around the trade deadline, there was a ton of rumors swirling that the Patriots were looking to move Stephon Gilmore, and then all of a sudden he got injured, which kind of threw a wrench in that whole thing. And then people were questioning if the injury was really real or if he just didn't want to be traded in the middle of the season. But he's made it very clear he does not want to play on his current contract. We had Jalen Ramsey for the Los Angeles Rams trying to recruit him to come to Los Angeles. I mean, Jalen Ramsey, I don't think understands how anything works because they don't have any picks to even give to get Stephon Gilmore. They don't have any money to give to get Stephon Gilmore, so that's not going to happen. But definitely is an interesting situation to watch because Patriots, the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick have tended to move on from players too soon rather than too late. They'd rather trade a player a season early than have him on the roster for a season late. He's all of a sudden not playing well. We've seen them move on from guys abruptly, guys like Chandler Jones, guys like Jamie Collins, just moving on from guys unexpectedly, guys that were still really good players, but just moving on because the contract wasn't right or off the field issues or whatever. So I would not be surprised to see Stephon Gilmore be traded. I don't know if there's many places you could look where he would be a fit. Maybe a team like Seattle. I know they have cornerback needs. Maybe Las Vegas, a team like that that's kind of on the verge of being a playoff contender that is looking for something to improve that defense. But Stephon Gilmore is definitely an interesting name to keep an eye on here in Minicamp Holdouts. He plans to not attend the Patriots mini camps. And one final note as far as contracts and mini camps go, Danielle Hunter, who was expected to hold out of the Minnesota Vikings mini camp, actually restructures his deal with the Minnesota Vikings. He's been wanting a new deal for a while now. He did not play all of last year because of injury, and people I feel like have kind of forgotten just how dominant of an edge of a pass rusher Danielle Hunter really is. I mean, he has been really dominant since coming into the league. He's still very young. He had 14 and a half sacks his last 2 seasons playing, and just a dominant force, one of the most physically intimidating players in the league. He gets a new contract where he will receive $5.6 million as a signing bonus, and it gets him to now attend training camp, attend mini camp. He will not be holding out, and he now gets an $18 million option for next year if he's still on the team. Before the new league year, if he gets cut, that money is not owed to him. Then he would be a free agent. So this is a deal that's been a while in the making. Both sides have wanted to get this deal done, and Danielle Hunter now back with the Minnesota Vikings. What makes a superstar in the NFL? We talked about this last year when I went through this segment. And I think I said what really makes a superstar is a player that you could ask somebody who vaguely knows about football, somebody like my producer Joe Thiessen. You could ask him, if they knew who this player was, and they could name this player. They would know this player. Not only are they an extremely good player, but they're very well known. Guys like Patrick Mahomes, guys like Tom Brady, obviously, guys like I think Alvin Kamara. Guys like that. Julio Jones, I think, is in that category. A lot of quarterbacks would be considered in that category. I think there's different levels. There's kind of stars in the NFL. That's players who are really good for their respective teams. Last year, I made the comparison that Xavier Howard for the Miami Dolphins would be considered a star, not a superstar. Now, with the season he had last year, you could maybe consider him a superstar now. He's definitely a well-known player, and most casual NFL fans would be able to name who Xavier Howard is. He was so dominant last year, one of the best defensive backs in the NFL. But there are players who are really good, solid players who just, they're not the next level. They're not superstars. They're not the guys you're going to see on the NFL promos. They're not the guys you're going to see on the front page of NFL Shop. They're not the guys that are going to be constantly in prime time. They're not those guys. Those guys, like we talked about, are like Patrick Mahomes, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, guys like that. And I think there are seasons where guys really stake their claim as NFL superstars. I think you can have a season where you just immediately become, maybe you were not a superstar, maybe you were an unknown, and you immediately go into a superstar. A good comparison of that, I think, would be Justin Jefferson this year, a guy who was a rookie in the NFL, and to me, he did enough in his rookie season to already be on that superstar level. I think he is there. With his dance move that he does, the gritty, he's a popular player. He's a dominant player. So he will not be on my list of guys who I think could join the superstar club this upcoming season, because I think he's already there. But I do have another second-year receiver that is on my list. But before we get into my list of guys that I think can jump into that superstar status this upcoming season, I went back and I looked at the players that I named on this list last year, just to kind of hold myself accountable, and it was interesting what I found. So the first player that I had on my superstar future superstar list was Chris Godwin, the wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and this was not a great pick. Chris Godwin had just been coming off an incredible season where he led the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in receiving yards. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was second in the league in receiving yards, just behind Michael Thomas. So he was right up there, had a dominant season. I thought he was just on an upwards trajectory. And by no means did Chris Godwin have a bad season last year, but it certainly was not up to the standards of a superstar. I don't think that he took that next step to becoming a household name. He had 850 yards, 7 touchdowns, still a very good season in only 12 games. So still, played really well, but not anywhere near the level that he played last season. So didn't quite get there. My next name that I had was Darren Waller, the tight end for the Las Vegas Raiders. I think I nailed it. That is the one that I think I really nailed on this list. Darren Waller, I think, absolutely did play at a superstar level last year. He was dominant at times, and that's kind of what I expected out of him. He had just been coming off of a good, not great season. Oh, well, I guess you could call it great. He did have over 1,000 yards the season prior, but this year he really took things up to another level. He had over 1,000 yards again. He had 9 touchdowns and just really took over games for the Raiders. And then Baker Mayfield was one of my other picks. He played a lot better. He was coming off that 22 interception season, not looking great. I went on a limb and said he was going to bounce back and become a superstar. That was maybe a little ambitious. He played a lot better, like I said. Still not a superstar. I would not consider him in that category. I also had Kyler Murray, another Oklahoma quarterback. I also wouldn't say that he really became a superstar. So I'm about 1 for 4 at this point. Derwin James was my only defensive player. Oh, sorry, no, 2 defensive players I had. Derwin James and Tre'Davious White from the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, Derwin James injured all of last year, did not play a snap. I had him on this list before that injury, so that was disappointing. Still think he could jump into that superstar category. And Tre'Davious White, I guess it would depend who you ask. He's just been so dominant. He's played so well throughout his career. I don't know if he's. I guess you could say he is a superstar, but I think you really have to know football to know him. But I think he's probably up there as one of the better. He's an All-Pro. I think you could consider him a superstar. So we didn't do terrible, I guess. Didn't do great either. But last year, I held myself accountable. Went back and looked. And this year, I have a few more names of guys that I think can go from good to great, go from star to superstar. And we're going to start off with a couple of defensive players. And my first player is a pretty obvious one. I think a lot of people could say this is not going out on a huge limb, but Chase Young, the edge rusher for the Washington football team. To me, I mean, this guy just has the makeup of a complete freak. I mean, a complete dominant pass rusher in the NFL. I think he has the ability to take over games, and we saw that at times last year. He struggled with injuries at times. It was a tough year for rookies last year. And you'll see a few second-year players on this list that I think are going to take a big jump. And for Chase Young, like I said, for rookies, really tough. No training camp, no preseason. Everything was kind of terrible with COVID. This season, things are kind of getting back to normal. He played still quite well. Started off pretty hot. I think he had a sack and a half in his first game against the Eagles, and then kind of fell off a little bit, but then played really, really well down the stretch, and just had some games where he just made plays that were just incredible. And he finished with 7.5 sacks in 15 games, 10 tackles for loss, 4 forced fumbles, 4 passes defense, and a touchdown on one of those forced fumbles. And the forced fumbles number to me just shows how much of a game wrecker he can be. And I think that's what to me will make him a star. Somebody like J.J. Watt, somebody like T.J. Watt, another Watt brother. Guys who are superstars in this league. J.J. may be coming towards the end of that. But in J.J. Watt's prime, I think what made him so great is not only the huge sack numbers that he had, which is I think Chase Young can get on this fantastic defense, but it's just the ability to completely take over a game. Just destroy the guy playing across from you. Just force a fumble, rip a ball away, take it back 30 yards for a touchdown. Intercept a batted pass and run it back for a touchdown. J.J. Watt was playing tight end in his prime at this point, and who knows, maybe Chase Young is capable of that. To me, Chase Young just screams a guy who is just an athletic freak, so big. He looks like the Predator. He's got the look of a superstar, and I think this season on that defense, I think he is absolutely primed to become to become that superstar, to take that next step for the Washington football team. He plays on a very talented defense, and I would not be shocked whatsoever if he led the league in sacks this upcoming season. So to me, Chase Young is a very obvious pick for a guy who is going to shoot into the superstar club at the end of this season. And my next player, also a defensive player, a little bit of an older guy, not a second-year player, but a guy that's just been playing extremely consistent for the Denver Broncos the last few seasons. That's free safety Justin Simmons for the Denver Broncos. He's 27, so a little bit older than a Chase Young. But to me, this guy, I think, has all the intangibles to become that superstar level safety in the NFL. Safeties, I think, oftentimes can get that extra recognition, especially when playing in a really good secondary. Guys like Cam Chancellor on the Legion of Boom, he was probably the third best player on that defense behind Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas. But Cam Chancellor is a guy who's almost remembered more than those two, just for his huge hits, his just game-changing plays. I mean, he was just one of the hardest hitters I've ever witnessed in football, especially in this new era of football. And to me, Justin Simmons is in a very similar situations. That Denver Broncos defense, that Denver Broncos secondary is comparable to that Legion of Boom that we saw in Seattle in the early 2010s. They have so much talent all across the board on that secondary. They have Kyle Fuller, Ronald Darby, Bryce Callahan in the slot, and then they drafted Patrick Surtain, who many people had as the best defensive back in the draft. And then you add Bradley Chubb and Von Miller rushing the passer. I mean, this defense is loaded. And a lot of times when you have a loaded defense like that, the guy who ends up making the huge plays and getting all the recognition is often at the safety position. And I think Justin Simmons is primed to do that because he's a guy who just seems like he's always in the right place at the wrong time. Or at the right time, rather. He's always in the right place at the right time. He is just all over the field, constantly around the ball. getting interceptions. He's had great interception numbers his whole career. He had 2 his first season, 2 his second season, and then 3, 4, and 5 last season. He was selected to a Pro Bowl last year. He's just been one of the best safeties in the NFL the last few seasons. PFF loves him. And like I said, he's a guy who's just a playmaker. He's gonna get turnovers. He's gonna be around the ball. He's gonna get interceptions. He's gonna get pass deflections. Last year in 16 games, he had 96 tackles combined, 5 interceptions, and 9 passes defense. So a guy who's just around the ball all the time. And then we talked about Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers potentially being rumored to go to Denver. I don't know how likely that is at this point. They seem to be set on Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater right now. But just imagine if Aaron Rodgers or Deshaun Watson ends up on those teams, and this team is actually really good. I think they're just a quarterback away from being really good. That's just going to excel the level of superstardom that the good players on this team have. I think if they get a quarterback like that, the attention's going to go towards the Denver Broncos. And people are going to see, hey, Justin Simmons, this guy's extremely good. And then, you look at some of the other safeties, I think, in the NFL that are kind of maybe at that superstar caliber. I know Honey Badger, a lot of people don't think he's very good. I think he's an extremely versatile, incredible player. But I would consider him a superstar in the NFL. And just other safeties like that. Harrison Smith, I think, was at that level for a little while. But I think Justin Simmons could absolutely take that next step and become that superstar in the NFL, because he's just a guy who makes big plays, and that's what you look for in a game-changing superstar. Moving on to my next player, and it's another second-year player, and it's Jonathan Taylor, the running back for the Indianapolis Colts. This is a player that I was really high on coming into the draft. He is just a phenomenal runner. He struggled a little bit at the beginning of last season. People were thinking that maybe he just was worn out. He got a lot of run in college at Wisconsin. People thought that maybe he would be worn out, and it looked that way early on in his career. But later on in that season, he really came into his own and really had a fantastic rookie season. He finished with 232 carries, 1,169 yards, 5.1 yards per carry, 11 touchdowns, and he added in almost 300 receiving yards and a touchdown receiving. PFF gave him an 80.7 grade, which was 10th best in the NFL, and just had games where he took over. The last game of the season, in last season, he just went insane. I think he ran for over 250 yards, and that's kind of what he's capable of. I think you could argue with what's his name, Marlon Mack coming back. Marlon Mack, the running back there for Indianapolis, who was injured last season. I think that was a big reason why we saw Jonathan Taylor take off, is because he had those extra opportunities. Marlon Mack will be coming back, and they do have Nyheim Hines, who's a really good receiving back out of the backfield for the Indianapolis Colts. But Jonathan Taylor, I think, is a better all-around back than both these guys. You could argue that he's not the receiving back. I think that's something that he can develop. But to me, he reminds me a ton of an Ezekiel Elliott type of running back. He's a guy who can just do it all. I mean, he can run you over. He can be that bowling ball of a runner, just a hard runner, going to fight for a first down. But he can also juke you out of your socks. He's got that breakaway speed to run away when there's a hole. He ran a 4.39 40-yard dash at the combine. Just a freak athlete. And a guy who can be a workhorse. We saw it at Wisconsin, just getting so many carries. He can be that workhorse for them. And I think that's kind of what got Ezekiel Elliott to that superstar status, is he was a guy that they could just lean on in games, and he would take games over. He would just, he's got all the tools, all the intangibles. I think if Jonathan Taylor continues on the trajectory that he has, he adds a little bit of a receiving game to his game. He doesn't even technically need that. I mean, Derrick Henry doesn't have that, and he's most definitely a superstar in the NFL. But Indy's got 4 primetime games. We'll have many chances to see Jonathan Taylor. And if he can, continue on this upward trajectory, I really like Jonathan Taylor. I think he's a guy who is absolutely on the superstar trajectory. And then on to another second-year offensive player, and it's a wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb. He's a guy that I really liked, another guy that I really liked coming into the draft. And like I talked about earlier with Jonathan Taylor, with Chase Young, it was so tough for rookies this past year to really come to the NFL. And CeeDee Lamb by no means played bad. I think he played really well at times. He finished with 74 receptions, 935 yards, receiving in 5 touchdowns. And a lot of that, all but 5 games of that, was without Dak Prescott. And Dak is back this upcoming season. And I think this offense, if Dak can get back to what he was doing last year, last season, he was at a ridiculous pace. He was on pace for 6,000 passing yards. If he can get back to even remotely that good, this offense is loaded. We talked about Zeke Elliott is there. Amari Cooper's been dealing with ankle injuries during the offseason, and if that hinders him, I think CeeDee Lamb is absolutely capable of taking over as that number 1 receiver in this offense. To me, CeeDee Lamb is just a versatile guy that I think has higher upside than a guy like Amari Cooper. CeeDee Lamb is a guy you can use all over the field. You can use him in the slot, use him out wide, even hand him the ball in the backfield on end arounds and stuff like that. They did a little bit of that last year. And his run after catch ability, his spectacular catch ability, he reminds me so much of Odell Beckham Jr. And I think Odell, when he's healthy and when he's in his prime, he's absolutely at that superstar level. And to me, CeeDee Lamb, there's no doubt in my mind, maybe it's not this season, but I think that he's going to eventually get to that point where he's in that superstar, tier. And playing for the Dallas Cowboys certainly does not hurt. Wearing that number 88 for the Dallas Cowboys certainly does not hurt. They're going to get a ton of exposure. CeeDee Lamb is a guy who can just make incredible plays. His run after the catch ability is just one of the best in the league. He gets open really, really well. And like I said, you can put him in the slot. He creates mismatches. He had that one incredible catch against Minnesota. So he's got that wow factor. And to me, CeeDee Lamb, we saw what he did at Oklahoma. There was games where he just literally took over the game at the wide receiver position, which is not easy. I think there's few players that can do that. I think Julio Jones, Megatron back in his prime, obviously Jerry Rice, but I didn't really witness Jerry Rice's career. But guys like that are few and far between. I think CeeDee Lamb, we talked about Justin Jefferson. I think he's already at that point. But I think CeeDee Lamb this season and beyond can get to that superstar level. And then one final player that I think could jump into that superstar tier this upcoming season rather. And it's a little bit of a different selection than the rest of these guys. I kind of went younger. Justin Simmons was my oldest guy. He was 27, so still not in his 30s. But my final selection of a guy who could jump into that superstar club this upcoming season is a guy who's 33 years old. He's a guy who just joined a brand new team. He just got traded. A guy who's been stuck in a tough situation, but now we think he's in one of the better situations in the NFL, and that's Matthew Stafford, the quarterback of the Los Angeles Rams. I talked about, I think on the last couple podcasts, how excited I am for this Rams team. I think this Rams team is just set up for incredible success. I think Matthew Stafford is set up for incredible success as well. I think that he's just in such a good spot. I mean, you look at this Los Angeles Rams team, there's just so few holes. And people have been hyping up Matthew Stafford going to this team, since it happened, kind of saying that he's an MVP candidate. And some people may be overrating him. I don't know if I want to say that he's a shoo-in for the MVP. I think it definitely could happen. And I think he's in a great spot for that to happen. But to me, Matthew Stafford, he's no longer stashed away in Detroit. He's no longer stashed away in, on a team that doesn't win anything. He's going to be on a playoff contending team. He's going to be in Los Angeles. His first game is on primetime Sunday night. They have five primetime games this season. So he's going to be in the spotlight. And he's just a guy who's played really, really well, even in down years. Last year, 64% completion percentage, over 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. And he's had 4,000 yards in 8 of his 12 seasons in the NFL. So just so consistent and just putting up crazy numbers on the Detroit Lions. I mean, if you compare that to Russell Wilson, Russell Wilson's got 4 seasons out of his 9 with 4,000 passing yards. And Stafford is only 1 year older than Russell Wilson. I think Matthew Stafford has a chance to have an incredible final chapter of his career. He's getting closer to the end. I mean, quarterbacks are playing till their early 40s now. So he still could have another 7, 8 years in the NFL. I think if he continues to play at the level that he has played at in Detroit, if he continues to bring that to Los Angeles with much better receiving talent than he had last year, with a much better defense, much better coaching. I still think Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the NFL. If he can bring that, there's no doubt in my mind he takes that next step, and he finally, better late than never, becomes a superstar in the NFL. He becomes a guy like, not maybe Patrick Mahomes level, that's another tier, but maybe a Russell Wilson, a guy like a Josh Allen. He's up there with those guys in that superstar tier. I think he's very capable of taking that next step. I'm excited to see Matthew Stafford and all these guys. I think that could become superstars. There's a few guys that didn't quite make my list. I just couldn't quite put them. I thought about Calvin Ridley, the receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, but I felt like he was maybe almost already to that point. And I think that's kind of too obvious. With Julio Jones not there, he's going to be the number one guy. Him and Kyle Pitts there, I think, are going to be phenomenal. And Calvin Ridley, to me, I think is too close to a superstar already. His season last year was incredible. I thought about putting John Johnson, the safety for the Cleveland Browns. He played really well for the Rams last year and just has been a phenomenal player. And now he's going to a defense where, just surrounded with talent there in Cleveland. But that wraps up my segment of players who could become superstars in this upcoming NFL season. I'm going to throw it back to Joe before we close. Joe, you said you had something to talk about. I don't know if you still want to talk about it or if the moment is past at this point.
Yeah, it is definitely past, but I was just going to say that tomorrow my wife and I are going to our 3rd ultrasound.
Wow.
My wife is 20 and a half weeks pregnant, and we're finding out the gender. Well, we are not finding out tomorrow, but here's how good Joe is. Like, Joe and his wife, here's how good of friends they are to us.
This is great.
We are, we're not going to find out at the ultrasound. We're just going to find out if the baby's happy and healthy. And we're going to give the gender results, either male or female, to Joe and Amy. And they're going to prepare these gender cannons.
This is the first time hearing of this.
Right? They're going to prepare the gender cannons for us. And basically, we're having a party on Saturday with our families. And they're going to give us the correct cannon. And we are going to find out with our families what the gender of our baby is.
How exciting is that? That's
extremely exciting.
Incredible. I remember when I was at that stage, that is one of the most nervous days of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even that I even cared. I genuinely didn't care what the gender of the baby was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I couldn't care less if it was a boy or a girl. But just for some reason, just so nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And just when you find out that it's just, our baby was healthy and everything's, he's great now.
Yeah.
But just to see the baby and to see that it was healthy and everything was good, and then to find out that it was a boy, it was just, wow, that was an incredible day. That's one of the best days of my life, honestly. We found out right away, the day of, and you guys are gonna have to wait. I can't even imagine the excruciating
Wednesday to Saturday.
That's tough because like I know you've been waiting already so long, but that's gonna feel just so long.
I know.
I mean, I don't know.
I'm not gonna talk to you for 3 days.
Just completely cut me off.
Don't be like offended if all of a sudden like our relationship starts to,
You're saying this is the beginning of the end.
Yeah, basically.
This is like a really important thing that you're letting me do, and it's going to be the last thing that I do for you.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to be friends after this anymore.
Exactly right.
Okay, fair enough.
So by the time you're hearing this, Joe's going to know what baby I have.
Yeah,
what
and
kind of baby I have.
it's going to be a, then you can bleep it out. Or what? No, you don't think so? Okay, fair enough.
I'm keeping all of this in.
Okay, I thought it would be a funny thing, but apparently not. I'll know the gender of your baby. You ruined the end of my podcast. Joe, unless you have anything else you want to talk about. That's super exciting. Make sure you guys keep Joe and your thoughts and prayers. It's an exciting time for Joe and his wife. And thanks for listening to another episode. I really enjoyed this episode. I don't know about you, Joe. I thought it was a good one. It was
a really good one.
I really like this one. Bit of a long one. I really like it.
It is a bit of a long one.
If you guys enjoyed, make sure you share it with your friends. Why the heck, if you like it, would you not want to share it with other people?
If you had something that you spent hours every week doing, something that you love, wouldn't you want people to know about it? Wouldn't you want your friends to share it with other people?
Exactly.
Do that for us, please.
Why would you not do that? We consider you friends. I hope you consider us friends. So help a friend out and share this with your friends. Leave us a like. Subscribe, please. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It's so much appreciated. Downloads are everything for us. We need downloads. We need those downloads. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter @_AverageJoeShow. Tune in every week for new episodes, potentially Tuesdays. We've been really screwing that up lately.
Yeah.
But we'll try to get back on a regular schedule. Just, again, follow us on social media for any updates as far as that goes. But thank you guys for the listen, and we will catch you guys on the next one.